It's been one game so far in the finals of the Intel Extreme Masters here in Cologne, and the question remains, is it QG Reapers really showing up to play, or is it ever kind of holding back and testing the waters with QG? So far, I think we will have to jump into the picks and bans of Game 2 to really find out. Because again, the big questions are, like you mentioned, Yamato, yes, Ever could have played that game better, but they also could have just drafted champions that would have never led to that scenario, and they could have played their own ball game from the very start. So going into Game 2, what are the big differences you want to see from Ever's side?
Well, I feel like they need to put proper priority on the Trundle. And of course, like I felt like something that Dexter mentioned in the draft where they didn't go for the trade with Lissandra and Rise. And with that in mind, I feel like they should just rethink everything a bit.
The other big thing is ban Victor. Why is Doinby consistently getting on this champion? He plays pretty much two champions, Victor and Kassadin. Either ban both of them or deny one. We've seen teams in the past throw a triple ban against him. I'd like to see Ever do the same thing.
And there you have it. Wish granted, the Victor ban coming right out from the start. So Ever having the same thoughts, deciding, okay, you know what, Doinby, let's try to make him just significantly weaker and limit his pool. Of course, QG going with the same ban so far. The Bard in the game. The Soraka also being banned out. They didn't like that either. And you know, let's give the credit where it's due. That Soraka was annoying as heck in most of those fights.
Yes, it was. Soraka was very good into Alistar, into Kassadin as well. But right off the bat, Lulu is open, Lissandra is open, Trundle is open, and everything is open. Oh my goodness.
Take Lulu. They can't allow Rise and Lulu to get on the same team. Obviously, those two champions synergize so well because Lulu helps compensate for Rise's inability to gap close. There we go.
Okay. Really dislike the Rise first pick because...
Do you take the Lissandra here?
I think Lulu and Lissandra are so good into Rise. I feel, regardless of choice, I think it's going to be good.
All right.
Also Trundle. I think like Ever should go for the Trundle, but...
They just love Alistar. What?
Everybody loves Alice, everybody loves the Nidalee, and everybody loves the Alistar.
I mean, I can see why Alistar is being considered to be one of the best picks simply because of the knockback into Rise. But Trundle does the same job, I think, just more effectively without committing even. So I think Trundle is just has the option of flexing too. So
it's so good into Rise as well.
I mean, if we were to think,
Ever should just get in, like lock in the Trundle support already and get Lissandra too.
Okay.
Why would you do that?
Have been to have like the Trundle and the Lulu. Like Rise gets hit by the pillar, he's super slow. He doesn't have the Lulu. You can get polymorphed. Everyone's whimsing away. Like so good.
I think also what would be good right now, maybe consider Tristana already if you want to take it away, because then QG is kind of forced into like low range AD carry. Which is, there's no other option left. I mean, we saw them play Jinx, but I don't think Jinx is currently that strong to just pick her up, and especially not with like an Alice. Like it's kind of weak support to make up for that fact, right?
And after seeing, like, after that matchup, how the jungle matchup panned out in the previous game, I think picking up Rek'Sai for Ahri, something he has performed on, is a good choice because his Elise was like a spider that you just smush in, like, in the cellar or something.
One set Elise.
I also feel like it goes back and it supports Ever and kind of their global pressure and composition again. The fact that you have the Void Scream. I mean, not only did Spirit have the, Spirit Swift have the Rek'Sai last game, he was able to fall around Elise, but taking the Rek'Sai, so he has the Void Scream, it allows Doinby to pick up the Ignite versus the double TP, but you effectively still have champions with global presence.
Yeah, good point. So QG now ball back at their court. Of course, earlier we gave credit to Ever in Game 1 by taking that Tristana away and making sure they could combat that Rise. This time they're going to make sure they secure both of them. So QG, will that Jinx come back up kind of as a fallback still for the long-range AD carry? We'll have to find out.
I'm really hoping we just get to see Lissandra on one of these sides because Lissandra, against both compositions, are pretty damn good.
Yeah, but actually like Fiora Elise maybe here. Just to snowball the Fiora lane and make sure, like Fiora is not even that bad in Rise, it's just how the matchup works. If Rise gets ahead, then the game is kind of over, right?
Similar to the Jarvan thing.
Yeah, it's just like how the matchup works. It's like jungle decided, of course, and we have seen both jungler play around top lane, but that small misplay just turned the entire game. And we see Lucian Lulu, obviously the Jugger Lucian comp was like really popular back in Season 4 already in Spring Split. Just so much mobility on the Lucian, you can't really catch him, but Rise is just that one key factor here in that game, probably, like always.
Heavily dislike if they're going to go for the Varus. We saw it being very efficient in the past, but that was into a Victor. Like, this guy, what is his name again? Varus is super good into Victor simply because, like, Victor doesn't have a powerful all-in, neither does Varus. Varus has a huge range advantage, so obviously it's good. So the fact that he's hovering it right now and Victor is banned, I do not like it at all because the problem with Varus is his lack of mobility, and good luck. Whimsy AP scaling.
Yeah.
Broken stuff right there.
It's true, but it looks like they're pretty set on it. And like you mentioned, of course, good performance on that Varus yesterday. The matchup's going to be distinctly different, not just in the lane, but overall composition-wise. QG still one role to fill, and it is going to be that jungle who's going to show up for Swift. I mean, lots of options all open. In fact, only Mundo really being taken out, and then, of course, Rek'Sai being taken by Ares forever.
So it's like...
So jungle last pick, what do you pick here right now?
It's so open. I think they should just go for the elites for the pressure.
No Kindred.
The Kindred,
Maybe,
yeah, I was about to say.
Oh, no.
Why didn't we call
The
this?
Nidalee, of course.
How did we forget about this champion?
Sandbagging is back. They are so uncomfortable with winning the first game, so they...
To be fair, Nidalee's not going to do awful even if she goes even into the mid game against this composition, simply because you don't have a ton of tanks. They're fairly squishy since your top lane rides. It's not as bad as it could be.
Right, let's give them credit where
it's a fair point.
Can be given. The composition perhaps a little bit better for Nidalee. Of course, you're still going to be able to help out with some utility there. You can kind of combat the poke with the Varus. Maybe we're reading into it a little too much, but they are picking it for a reason, I'm sure.
The other really cool thing about Nidalee is she's pretty much the only champion that kind of in the level 1 can go and get deep vision with her traps simply because of the cooldown on her W to get over the wall. Like, obviously other champions can jump over walls, but Nidalee's able to do it quicker. And we already saw that Swift is prioritizing getting in Ares' face. So we'll see if in the early level 1 that he makes the invade onto the red buff and starts laying down those traps to figure out where this Rek'Sai is so he can be as obnoxious this game.
Well, how things have changed over the course of the weekend. We start the weekend by saying we talked all these other junglers up and really kind of laugh at the Nidalee. Now we're finding all these reasons to make it sound like Nidalee's still great in this meta, but it will be showing up this game, the game number 2 between QG and Ever. QG currently leading 1-0. We'll find out as we load into the game if QG can keep that lead or if we're going to set it back to a 1-1 tie.
We are just around the corner from Game 2 here at IEM Cologne. It is the grand final if you just joined us. My name is Uber. I am here with Papa Smithy and Pyrotechnics. And you've been scratching your head, Papa, a little bit about the draft, pretty much in both of these games so far.
It's a little bit curious. We spent so much time praising specifically Ever's ability to draft last game. And this game, specifically the Varus. Now, the Varus made so much sense as a red side 5th pick in a situation where it was against Victor, where it could just wave clear from range. There was low engage onto it. And this time, the Gambit was kind of set open. They said, okay, we're going to pick the Varus. The jungle pick can be something that shuts it down. That hasn't really been grabbed by QG.
We are now up onto the rift. It's QG on the red side. It's going to be Ever on the blue. And that mid-Varus will be a presence here forever. And we'll see exactly how that one works out, along with the other interesting draft facets here.
Well, and maybe 5 Ever, but we're not quite that far into the games just yet. So QG leading the board right now on that one game. But remember, Athena did play this yesterday against H2K in their opening game. They did win that game, but I don't think it was that big of a contributing factor, especially not with that teleport as we see some early action starting, but it's just a few love taps.
Just a couple of things that come up in the draft. For example, Ever prioritizing Ryze over Lulu. Lulu has been, the few snippets we've seen of her, a dominant force in this tournament. And even though I expected something that could, say, get on top of the Varus with the last pick from the jungle, rather than the Nidalee, just a Lulu whimsy. We'll see Loken actually meeting Swift in the jungle.
Yeah, TCT and TNT actually chilling in the Baron Poot with the ward outside, and we're waiting for their chance to pounce. But that Trundle was there.
But just the fact that the whimsy gives the extra movement means champions that you don't usually associate with picks are going to be that much more reliable getting on the largely immobile or very hard to maneuver Varus. So Varus's positioning in team fights, even without something like a Malphite, is going to have to be so careful to just account for the whimsy from Doinby.
Yeah, and yet again, Ever don't have an incredibly tanky composition. Yes, he can get in the front and be able to be a big bruiser and maybe disrupt a lot of the damage that QG is bringing. Ares, though, he's going to have to be a lot more tanky as well because he has to compensate for the Tristana and the Varus in the middle and the fact that, once again, they don't have a true tank on their side.
Conversely, the same you could be saying of QG as well here. It's just, of course, the Alistar.
There's a bit of artificial tankiness, though, too. If you look at the Lulu, I mean, that Wild Growth brings a deceptively high amount of stats. And yes, it's technically true they don't have a tank either, but they've got a lot more sustainability due to that on their side.
What I like from Ever is a future where Ryze is off farming in the side lane, which is obviously going to be a very likely thing, that given that he has teleport and wants to scale up. But specifically the double AD sieging of turrets. Varus going to probably pick up Ghostblade like we saw Athena pick up last game. Tristana, one of the best champions in the game, probably the best now that Jinx had some tweaks at picking up turrets. You just throw down a Trundle pillar, just dissuading, putting down a slow field that also creates that temporary terrain behind a turret. DPS it down almost instantly with the Ghostblade proc and the Tristana, and then just disengage. And that's the sort of thing that Ever can do if things go even, or if they don't fall behind in the early game.
So we do see Swift here having taken away that Scuttlecrab and is already making his way towards the top side. No ward there for Crazy. We'll see at what point they might want to spring the trap here. He is playing a bit cannily. V is also quite close up to him on that right side.
He's got to play back. I mean, it's not so much that V's going to be able to assassinate him incredibly early, but he had the slight level advantage, and the fact that Vital was in a really inconvenient spot for Crazy meant he was going to be back, but yeah, right now, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the bottom as TCT does place a clutch ward down and spot Key, but they had to know since he was missing, something was up, and Ares is having trouble with the red buff.
Oh dear, in fact, yeah, he's got to be real careful, has to back away, and it resets for him. That's not good.
Worried that there would be Krugs there. They hadn't spawned quite in time. They actually would have been DPSing him down if he had knocked them down as he came over the wall, so lives to fight another day.
Oh dear. Could have been dicey for the man, but he'll escape potential embarrassment. Of course, Broken Shard is in the audience today, so
of
course,
that's a low blow,
I'm
man.
sure he knows what that's all about. But V, again, posturing towards the top side again. How is it? It's like a wives' tale by now, really. We don't even know if it really happened or not.
And
It
Swift
happened.
is on.
We got footage.
Swift is on the last pick, Nidalee. And Nidalee, love-hate relationship, and then some coming through from some of our analysts, Dexter in particular. Nidalee can assert a lot of pressure in the early game. So can Rek'Sai, but Nidalee can kind of snowball out of control. This is a comp, as you mentioned, a low tank lineup that Nidalee can potentially still do damage in the mid game, but you're gonna have to see how this Nidalee goes. If it's a 0-0 Nidalee 15, 20 minutes in, it's not gonna really justify giving it up as a red side 5th pick.
Yeah, that's true. And, Swift is definitely making a little bit of his presence known, well, rather unknown, as he's sneakily doing a bit of counter jungling, get some ward coverage down in there just to make sure he can keep track of where Ares is on the map. And speaking of Ares, he has definitely been set a little bit further behind, not just by the red buff, but
Just back up
yes,
top.
difference. Crazy's in some trouble.
You're a little bit too forward. He flashed with the javelin, had already made its mark, and it's another pounce. And there is first blood for Swift.
Crazy was smart to juke back the last time we saw Swift up top. The wraparound gank, though, very nice. And this is what you can do on Nidalee. You can power farm. You potentially have the dueling threat. He was 2 levels above just a moment ago as Athena.
Going a little bit low
again.
there. Pressure towards him. He is going to have to flash away from that one. It was just Doinby trying to lock him up.
So this totally validates that Nidalee pick. Burn 2 flashes, get the first blood. Swift's on a roll right now. Let's see if he can keep it up.
He's there just having taken away that Gromp, and he really hasn't been able to be a factor so far. But in the bottom lane, it's TCT just briefly coming forward, channeling a little bit of the player that he was, of course, back in North America.
And we expect to return ganks up top. You're soon going to have the grand challenge. Rise, no teleport, no flash. He's pretty much just sitting dark, especially as Swift has been power farming. Hasn't actually bought yet with 23 CS, and now a kill credit will be getting closer and closer to the Runeglaive. Swift, he's justifying the Nidalee pick, or at least contributing towards that with that early gank, as you mentioned.
And he hasn't had to really do much more than go to the mid, go to the top, or rather, I suppose I should say he hasn't had to go to the bottom because, for whatever reason, TNT's been playing so far back, and yes, you can get the ganks off, but Loken's playing incredibly safe. Key's been on a roam. I feel like he should be going down there, and, you know, in fact, I'm going to revise my statement a little bit, because TNT is actually having a really, really rough time of this, and you shouldn't be losing in CS versus a Tristana.
A really rough time, 5 CS, come on now.
It was 10 a moment ago, so prove me wrong.
The reality of minion waves sometimes means you can't be able to go up to contest.
Oh, very quick reactions there from Loken to rocket jump away. Tentative stuff here as well, but we were seeing this again in the start of game number 1. Neither team really willing to take more damage than is maybe required or appropriate in that little space of time.
You just see why junglers like Swift, like Spirit early in the tournament favor this Nidalee, because you were talking about what the jungler has to do. And there's champions like Rek'Sai that kind of have to relieve pressure. You know, often they'll be sitting in a brush using Tremor Sense ready for the counter game. Nidalee power farms, has hyper mobility, and is a great ganking jungler. She paid 2 visits to the top, power farmed, and was able to be around with an experience advantage, with a gold advantage, and now with kill pressure, just because her mobility is what defines early game Nidalee jungle.
Right, and this has meant that Ever, especially Ares, has had to react rather than be proactive around the map, and it's given QG this early game edge. TNT goes in, and he finds Athena quick.
Yep, that'll be a very, very quick kill for Swift there as a headbutt forward. Didn't go for the pulverize on the tower as well. He knew that he wanted to shift Athena away from that safe zone.
No summoners means no ability to flash the headbutt, and the reality of Varus is an immobile champion is confirmed. Will that be a factor in the late game when warding is a bit more equalized? There's no defensive vision whatsoever on the bottom side coming through from Ever, but it's just a repeat. 2-0 QG, just the same story as the previous game.
TCT now as well looks to make his way up towards the top side, and already wreaking havoc through mid and doesn't seem to want to stop there.
Oh boy.
Swift will be there with him, and this could be very, very nasty. In fact, I think the likelihood of that is extremely high.
They can wait for the wave, they can go for it now. They don't quite have the ultimate on Alistair, but Crazy he's done.
All right, headbutt goes in. He's going to get knocked up as well. Even the grand challenge being used just for some sustain under the tower, but it's not required. And 3 for none for QG. And Swift has been all about it. He's got 3 kills, mind you. All of those are his, but 100% kill participation can't go wrong.
But TCT went on a world tour here. I mean, this guy went from bot to mid to top, and they didn't even react properly to him at all. Ever had to know. He was gone for so long, he couldn't have just been back. The roaming support, he has basic boots, and he's pulling this off. Ever are way too slow in this early game.
And it just shows maybe why we're seeing the prioritizing of Alistair over Trundle. Key during that time had the same ability to roam. It was just a 1v1, a farm fest between Tristana and Lucian during this last, 2.5 minutes of roaming. And Trundle, it's not Alistair. You don't have the reliable engage. You don't have the same turret diving ability. But Key accomplished nothing while TCT affected 2 lanes at once.
The true point and difference right now between these 2 teams has to be that Nidalee of Swift there. Not only a good 15 CS, 50% of Ares' CS ahead of him, but 3 kills on top. He's definitely been starting to make some leaps and bounds, quite literally.
I mean, speaking of leaps, 3-0 Nidalee. There's snowballing and there's what Swift's put together. 3-0 Runeglaive CDR boots at 9 minutes, single-digit minutes, and just already an expensive item build that means there's no dueling, there's no 2v2s with this Nidalee.
And he can afford the extra pink wards as well. You can see he's got another one sitting in his inventory. He has been very proactive, very aggressive in getting his vision down and making sure he can keep tabs on areas in this one. And it's keeping Ever on the edge. Athena now could be in another spot of bother as Swift is once again hanging out in that brush. You never know if there's going to be an Nidalee in there.
1 javelin, and it's going to be lights out for that Varus as well. He looks to want to come forward a little bit. That might have actually worked against him. All chains of corruption to slow them up there as well, and that will have the intended effect. They're not able to get close enough as well. Pillar of Frost coming up, or Filth in this case. It may as well be Giant Growth being used by Dornby, and he's got to get exhausted too. ESC coming forward. They want this one badly. Dornby does drop down as well, but it's traded away because there's still the Swift factor. He's still there doing some serious work, and Ares has to back right up.
The massive level advantage,
and such a risk to skirmish when Nidalee has so much mobility. She's able to respond even if it's late on the uptick. Swift is going to get there. He's going to ensure at least an equal trade. And once again, Varus dies with the flash up this time. Maybe that's a good thing to hold on to that summoner given his likely death. But he is so easy to single out in the back line from Ever.
Yeah, QG still continuing to trade. at the very least evenly, but Swift is not going to rest on his laurels at all. Crazy, if he steps one toe out of line, Swift will be pouncing all over him. There goes the spear, instant flash, but it's burnt.
Yeah, well worth it, I think, for QG to come away with that one as well. Aries, well, he was close by, geographically speaking, but really in no position to assist, and Swift isn't done yet.
Aries is just in that spot that he found so familiar back on the IEM lineup when he was 1-14 in his professional champion's career. He wasn't highly regarded as a jungler. He's trying to be playing in the counter-jank capacity, but it's not meaning much.
The teleport coming in, it was actually parried away there. Crazy now just moving back as Swift now trying to escape from Aries. He took too much damage off the front foot there, and Aries is going to come forward. It's a flash from Dawn B, and that definitely going a little bit south there for QG on their attempted gank.
Ever set up the trap, and they had QG fall right into it. Unfortunately, they couldn't pick anything off of it. Swift nearly went down, but bringing enough people to the top lane meant that they were able to save their own members from any certain death and destruction and keep their tower alive. I mean, 11.5 minutes into this game, we are a lot more bloody than we were looking last time around.
Now, as we do see like you said, 4 kills here for Swift, and he did almost go down there as well, but has been able to escape scrutiny so far. V again harassing, is caught in a rune prison, but he's going to be keeping Crazy on his toes as much as he possibly can. The bottom lane has been a non-issue for us here, guys. It's just not something that we've even needed to see. Such passive play there, but it's opened up for such, crazy movements and rotations towards the mid and top side.
Such a different play of Tristana than we saw from H2K. Look, it's a very valid thing. Tristana's still strong in the late game, still a strong laner, and she's mostly been abandoned. Has been a roam fest between TCT and Key, but honestly, it almost feels like you could just pick Vayne and go for the same sort of situation. Of course, very risky matchups. Usually it's not something you can consider, but there's been so little attention paid to the bottom lane that you can get more greedy if you're not actually going to rotate your Tristana around and focus on picking up these turrets early.
Yeah, it's very true. And, while Loken has been doing the out-CSing game versus TNT, these AD carries have had such little impact since they have been sitting in the lanes just trying to pick up the farm. It makes you wonder if maybe they should just abandon the lane themselves and try to push towers elsewhere. That's where the action has been happening.
The biggest query of TNT as a player is his laning phase is not the strongest. He's someone you can prey upon the other game. These games have not been played around bot. It's basically allowing TNT and Loken to both opt into mid to late game team fights. So we might see some more attention up top.
Swift going towards Crazy there as well, and V already opening things up with a bit of damage. It's just as easy as that. That's the 5th kill now for Swift. He's got all the kills of QG, but he's giving out assists left, right, and center.
And unlike an Elise, for example, this is such a fantastic champion to get ahead so early. I mean, everybody you want to get fed on, but a champion like Nidalee can just do so much damage when you're far ahead. They can start getting the counter jungle even heavier now as DoomB comes in to help out. It's going to be so hard to deal with this kitty cat the longer the game goes.
Pretty much filthy levels of damage coming across here from Swift. Now, Papa, I mean, this is actually the second time now that we've thought that Ever has honestly outdrafted QG. I mean, first game maybe not as much. You think here the draft was a little bit more lopsided in Ever's case, but again we see QG just getting ahead.
I mean, the thing to consider is that QG still have Lulu, still has someone who's very competitive in mid. It should have just been a fairly safe game in terms of mid lane, but the moment that Spirit picked up, Spirit, I think of Nidalee, I think of Spirit, but Swift in this case picked up the first kill up top. Just his movement around the map, and the fact that Ever has been choosing to scrap with Swift either not accounted for in terms of vision on the other side of the map, or elongated fights where Swift is able to get there, it's allowed a snowball jungler to get completely wildly out of control, and Ares has been a complete non-factor. 0-0-1 in a game where his team is so far on the back foot.
I think the metaphor really fits when you look at what he was doing versus the red buff earlier, and just a bit of a misfire for the ESC jungler, but right now, they've got way bigger problems than just what's going on in there. Swift, DoomB, TCT, all looking for a roam, and this Rise, he's not no flash. He's got no chance.
And Aries also got out with Spirit Rush. He can't come towards the top side. Crazy's going to go down. That thing is for certain. But now QG might actually decide to go for even a turret here at this stage. We're 14, 15 minutes in now, and not one of them has fallen yet.
What is Ever achieving while the team continues to return and go back to the top lane, get the easy kill on Rise? The answer so far has been nothing. Finally, they're creating some pressure around bot. Looking for a pick on TNT.
TNT is exhausted. There's a flash being burned, but it's going to be the Unburrow just under him. He will be caught here. Easy as you like, and ESC finally starting to get their head above the water, but the tide is rising. Baron now going to be taken away. QG will work this one down oh so quickly.
I'll just slow down a little bit. Only 15 minutes into it's just the Rift Herald now.
My Lord.
No Baron on the map.
Let's get more excited, Mitch. Holy. Okay.
No big deal. It's still going to be something
Well,
that's
they're
going to go on
both purple, to be
Swift
fair.
as well. Gives Swift some more gold, gives Swift a chance to even be stronger in a pushing scenario. Remember, this is Nidalee, a champion who has the older attacks, who has the ability to give the attack speed slow and really take down turrets. So it's still a significant objective to pick up. Trading it for their first dragon, honestly, with their lack of map pressure, ever picking up the first dragon now, they may not even get a hope and a prayer to pick up one later. So they'll take it, but they do not want to give up any other turrets.
I just had some flashbacks to old pre-rework Nidalee there, as Athena surely did, taking about a huge chunk of his life out just with one javelin toss. But go back to that Dragon and Rift Herald trade. It is a little interesting that neither team opted to try and finish off a turret, so that gold will still sit passively in those turrets. And speaking of the gold, yeah, QG have built up a little bit more. Finally, one turret goes down as soon as I say it, and they will be able to even up the gap a bit more. But it is just so strange that ESC, the way that they drafted, it seemed so powerful up until that Varus pick, yes, and they just haven't really been able to do much with this. The real question, though, on the other side, that I really want to ask you, Papa Smithy, is with TNT, we know he's not a strong laner. We know that he comes in handy with the team fights. Why then would he eventually, with a champion like Misfortune, for example, still available, go for Lucian, a champion that is known as a quintessential lane bully?
I mean, Lucian just has the laning power, and you can see that consistently his support has been packing up and running. Lucian has a dash, he's very safe in lane. So it's just a safe pick they've gone for overall. And with the Lulu especially, a champion that usually has to deal with range issues in the late game will have the whims to be able to poke to the front and the back of the fight. So it's still a champion that won't lose damage output because of his shorter range in the early game, but is also a lane bully, so has that very relevant lane matchups as well.
So let's now take stock of things, of course, after what we did see just go down with that Rift Herald being taken away here and that little burst of action. Both teams are sitting back on it. The gold lead still nothing considerable because actually after all the pomp and circumstance and aggression we saw from QG early on, it was effort to take the first turret.
Where is that gold? It's all in the pockets of Swift, which can be a scary thing. This is a guy who can giveth and taketh away. Swift does sometimes, I would say on average once a game, have a bit of a brain fade. He had it very late in the first game. Of course, didn't contribute. It was already a 4-15 scoreline then. But the amount of pressure he's putting on and the power specs he's doing, we can see on screen here, he's a casual 2,600 gold ahead of Eris. He's just outclassing Eris in the jungle.
Yeah, he is absolutely demolishing him, but you know, there's a bit of a blind spot in the QG side. It did allow Crazy to get a bit of damage on the turret, but V's there to save the day eventually. Doom B's coming down. They actually, even Swift, they're looking for possibly a collapse, but Rise, after 4 deaths, he's learned his lesson. Although he is standing on a ward, but they're not going to be able to catch him in time before he recalls.
But that's information, of course, about his presence, or rather, actually his absence from the rest of the Rift here. And QG making some movements here towards that mid side, might be looking to even get involved further up that river, as Athena, who also has found himself a ward, and it's Ares just working over on that blue buff for Swift, never too far from the action. He will miss the javelin towards Athena. Still, always there, poking and prodding.
Just hopes that Ares would choose one of 2 options. Now in the late game, if Rise is actually doing fine, if he's hitting his items at a good clip, you can start to build armor, maybe some sort of a glacial shroud and then a bit more armor to deal with Fiora in the late game. It's already a tough matchup for the Rise, has potential, but still there's significant outplay involved, especially if QSS is picked up. Or you could have doubled down on snowballing Loken in the bottom lane. He wasn't able to relieve pressure. Rise is now horribly far behind. And look, Loken is ahead, but very little of that, barring the successful turret dive, is down to Ares. So the fact that he couldn't either kind of help a poor matchup or a snowball matchup as Nidalee Fiora poses, or actually help his own lane get ahead, means that Ares' ineffectiveness means that they just have to hope that QG slow down the item start to come forward, because if the game continues to be played at the pace dictated by QG in the first 20 minutes, there's going to be holes aplenty in Ever's comp.
There certainly are already, and we're seeing the water start to pour through, but the good news for them is that really all the gold, as you mentioned earlier, is concentrated on Swift right now. If they can get the shutdown on the Nidalee, if they can get a catch out of position there, they can really turn the tide. But there are teleports and Rift, well, Void Rushes rather, coming all around the way, but that's just going to be a misfire.
Yeah, Athena actually using his active on his Yomus and the flash, even a Chains of Corruption, so he put a heck of a lot to keep himself alive there.
And what does a no-flash Varus do the moment the Whimsy goes on to anyone, really? I mean, Fiora in particular, rushing up and grand challenging. Speaking of Fiora...
Oh, there's a flash.
Flashing on towards Crazy here as well. Crazy definitely had a feeling that this will be a tough one to him for win, and Swift as well is going to get involved. It's a flash, of course, of that Javelin, and a cancelled teleport to the bottom side.
Even the spooky ghosts weren't able to go. He was running as fast as he could out of there, but you can see, once again, no hesitation in these summoner spells at all. QG wanted to get their chase on. Ever were able to back away that time around. Now Loken and Key were looking to push up the tower, but a quick calling out of TNT is Key will actually take a bit of it. This might go down with the Tristana.
Key gave precisely no trundles about the damage coming through from Lucian right there. Just wanted to tank it up so they could take down the turret before the support came through. Support does come through, but this is what I wanted to see from Ever last game. Rotate the Tristana around, try to pick up that global gold. Because as you mentioned earlier, the global gold's the only thing that really has kept Ever really in any terms in this game.
This is one thing we feel that H2K actually did fairly well in winning games, was use Forgiven effectively, rotate him around the map. Even if he was on his own and didn't have a support and there was a 4v5 happening in the bot lane, you better believe that he was taking a turret down in the first place. But there's a spooky ghost. Athena, there's a lot going in towards him there, and the Giant through the between V to try and catch him, but Chains of Corruption come through, and it's a lot of damage being returned. It's a post-Giant growth Lulu. She's not going to get any more health, but somehow manages to get out. This fight's going to turn around. Ares is caught. He just escapes and now teleports for all and sundry, being cancelled at least for one.
Such a close call for the QG members. They almost even turned it around. Ares was so low. You can see how far behind he is. Even in optimal situations, they're able to chunk him down so fast. But QG get away completely this time. The downside is they will lose a turret here. That's going to be more gold in the pockets of Ever.
Yeah, the damage has already started. Lulu's not going to be able to get there fast enough. In the top lane, we see the 1v1 should favor the turret coming down. Will there be more, though?
Oh, Loken, he goes in exhausted, but he has enough damage, or does he? Knocked up, knocked back. He just can't get in there in time, and TCT, he saves the day this one.
And he's got cooldowns up very soon as well. He won't be able to be killed by Loken, so he can just belt him around the head parts until he does actually fall over. It's going to be a rocket jump away for Loken to keep him alive. A very interesting flash there from TNT, but it did keep him on his feet at least.
It was an insane play from both parts. The flash from TNT to stop there being a second auto attack to take him down, kept himself alive, and then Loken managed to buy space.
Oh my. Swift now failing his flash here as he tries to get out of the pit, and it's not going to be long before he is converged upon. QG now starting to make some errors, stumbling a little bit as Join B is going to be caught by the Chains of Corruptions. Oh, the knock-up onto 2 is just perfect, and Ares is going to make life very, very hard for V, who at least can dash away. That's 2 down for QG, and there's the snipe finish. Athena with the double kill.
Athena makes it happen with the quiver, and that was a much better, well-fought team fight. Crucially, this was the sort of fight that actually was happening right at the tail end of game 1. Shame about the 10,000 gold lead that made it all mute. This time, the global gold they picked up, the CS they managed to pick up, the fact that they've kept it within this small band of gold lead for QG, something that's eradicated. It's an 1,800 gold lead now forever, and they're smart skirmishing. This is a strong team fight team, and Ares, he's bringing it back after what was an objectively poor early game.
Just a brilliant baited trap right there. What we saw in the top lane didn't quite pan out earlier on in this game when the dive was attempted by QG. This time works out extremely well during the dragon attempt. Swift, a little bit cocky, a little farther ahead. He goes in, he burns his flash, then he's able to jump the pit, but they collapse on him completely, and from there it turns around. The moment Swift is gone, QG Reapers don't have anything left in the tank, and Ever knowing this, are able to completely turn the game in their favor.
One of the new things about this patch, the kill credit actually went on to Trundle. You might think, oh no, Trundle gets the shutdown gold. It's global gold now, of course. It's shared between the teammates, and everyone benefits from that shutdown. And that's why when you have a player like Swift that can make the hero plays, but can also do the head scratches, when they eventually do give up these sprees, it's significant for every member of Ever.
QG, you can see they want to nip this in the bud before it gets too far out of control, but Ever now is starting to fire on all cylinders, and Swift went down very, very low. Just a little bit of the trading that was happening over that Baron pit. ESC have moved forward. They've established dominance here, and Crazy is also shoving straight down the mid.
Crazy just wants to find farm, and he's just not looking for any sort of fight. He's just trying to pick up the CS and scale up, and that's the thing about Rise. He still will reach this war machine status later in the game. The machine gun will be activated, but for now, Crazy, he's just trying to avoid, specifically Fiora, but honestly anyone else, whenever he can.
Yeah, everyone on Ever knows exactly what they need to do, and they have been coming together as a team to bait QG into predictable tendencies, to be able to get them off of their backs. And, you know, it shows here what they've been able to pick up. They have obviously the Dragon priority, but they're still managing to keep QG away from it. They have 3 towers to the 0, so they have the impetus to pretty much just do whatever they want. About 60% of the map. And Athena, just seeing them pick up the list blue buff with the greatest of ease, of course, just shows how much of a mastery he has on this champion with that snipe he was able to accomplish earlier.
QG now getting a little bit close for comfort here as V has found Crazy. They're going to do Crazy, finally deciding it's his time to fight. But is it too early, or are there too many people involved? That might be the latter here. The grand challenge was activated and completed. V getting some health back now. Chains of Corruption went towards Dornby, but there's a knock-up on towards 2. QG now fighting back. Team fighting, definitely their forte, and they're showing it here in true form.
The 4v4 beginning with the face check onto the Fiora really was the death. Now, maybe if Tristana was there to mop up, things would have been different, but in a 4v4 scenario with Ryze dying effectively for free, QG, they're posturing towards Baron.
They are looking for it indeed. And with 3 members down still on the side of Ever, Swift checks a little bit face forward, and Loken will plant a bomb right in front of him. Swift and Doomby are a little low here, but they can collapse in, and in goes TCT.
Flash pulverizer, the headbutt was beautiful. I think he goes back over the wall. Now Loken will probably be able to get away with this for the most part. But guys, notice that as well, of course, that we did see Swift destroy that tunnel because Ares was dead. He wouldn't be able to void rush back towards his Baron that QG had taken away.
Tristana understands she can't go anywhere near that objective just now. Starting to walk over, Ryze is far away, 3,500 health. This should be a QG Baron.
No problem at all. 26 minutes into the game. Ever poking their noses around, looking to see if they can get a pick. There's the pillar. It's on to TCT, and Doomby a little low. Can they finish it? They can.
One kill. They could continue going. They don't quite have the vision, though. Oh, they want to pick up as many exit kills as possible. But QG will be happy if it's just Alistair passed over to Ever.
Damage definitely being done there, of course. The Baron being picked up. Athena still respawning in, having to wait now. Of course, he is up, but that is a big blow to Ever, who showed signs of a resurgence here. Point out as well, guys, 0 turrets so far for QG.
They're all about taking the kills where they can get them. Even if it had been so many of them onto Swift at the start of the game, they're starting to share the load a little bit. 2 more kills onto V, and a Fiora at this stage of the game can get quite scary when ahead on the gold, especially when the counterpart, Crazy, has had such a hard time. He finally decided to fight, and it bit him in the behind in the worst way.
And you can see why the analyst desk and a lot of coaches are just really hesitant to pick up this Varus. He is so prone to getting flashed upon, whimsied into. The moment Flash is down, he has so many difficulties. Swift,
no one saw that.
Fat fingers the Zonias. No one saw it, as you mentioned, but the Varus, the upside, the snipes, we remember those, but you don't remember the fact that if ever the gap is closed between himself and one of the oncoming members from QG, just really contributes nothing.
Now, we look back before, we started to say Ever now have brought back this gold lead. They looked like they dealt with a lot of the issues, but they had that gold lead and it was small, about a K, but it was 3 turrets ahead of QG. Now, they're going to be picking those up, or at least they have the opportunity to do so. Baron is going to give them that capacity, and you can see them looking for more objectives to pick.
I mean, no one's there to stand up to Fiora, specifically not the Ryze. Nothing he can do, despite the fact that he has the teleport as well. So Baron buff plus Fiora should be split push advantage. If they can coordinate their lanes effectively right now, probably not in the right spot, given that Ryze just chilling in the top lane, Tristana able to pick up the farm in bottom. But once they get the rotations in, the turrets will continue to come. 1 for TNT and more on the way, more on the menu for QG.
Yeah, some of those just tokens to knock them over, but this will start to slide the gold in favor of QG, as they already can see that lead turning around. Crazy takes a big calling, and TCT's around the side, making trouble again.
They've managed to hold him up for a while. He's been forced to use that Unbreakable will now, taking a lot of damage, but it really doesn't seem to leave a mark as he's trying to. That is a very big cow, and he's able to walk away. But Crazy there will finally put the damage down on towards him here. Response again from Ever, and QG lose the Alistair once again.
The meanwhile is certainly clear on your screen. Fiora picks up a turret. That's all 3 outer turrets down. Suddenly out of nowhere, a 4,000 gold lead. Tristana's a difficult one for her to lock down.
Loken got the jump on that, though. He really got the spot very quickly. V could have dashed in at the right moment and just hesitated, and that's all it takes.
But out of nowhere, you mentioned 0 turrets, what, 2 minutes ago? Suddenly 3, suddenly a gold lead. Suddenly something to fight over. That's the Dragon at this point. Execution heavy is what I would say about most Varus comps. This one in particular against a Lulu, a little on the crazier side.
Speaking of,
ooh, he could be in trouble.
Damage.
This is nothing. There's no one on this team he can stand up to in a split push sense between either of the teleport users on QG.
Now it's going to be Ever taking away this Dragon here as well. And do note, actually, it's the Death's Dance being picked up for Athena here as well.
Death's Dance. Interesting damage reduction item. I guess there's not that much AD itemization that made sense. We mentioned this. It feels great that the Ghost Blade after that. The Mirror Mount is fine, but there's just a limit to the items you can really pick up as Raz if you're not looking towards the lifesteal or just those other flat AD items.
So QG's push has pretty much been stemmed past the first tier turret here, but Doomby is still drawing pressure from 2. Swift is coming in through the jungle trying to get his vision down. He actually throws the trap. It's going to be snapped by Ares. and Athena should be able to get this one, but QG still very much on the offensive this game. Not much attention being paid to the bottom side as Crazy goes to deal with V. We all know how that's going to end. It's a 2-1-6 Fiora versus a 1-5-3 Rise. It's not long enough into the game before that Rise is really going to be a massive threat.
QG contesting this blue buff would have been kind of the final point in their plan here. If they could deny the blue from Varus, because there's actually a very high mana cost on the Q coming through from Varus when it comes to the instant AoE wave clear from a very far range. They could keep that blue away. Maybe they'd have more of an easy time pushing, but for now, going to return to the split push game. It's a 4 teleport game, but remember, one of those teleports is on a Rise who's struggling against both Lulu and Fiora, and the other one's on a Varus, who isn't really one we wanting to be anywhere near either of those champions in a side lane either.
Amongst all of this as well, it's safe to say, you know, Ever struggling a little bit there in those last few fights, but they've been leaning on those dragons as well a little bit as a crutch, and we spoke about that. You know, lesser form of pressure to be built up, but still it's a possibility. You don't think about it when you have 0 dragons, but when you have 3 and 4, then it's a possibility for Ever here as well. But it also is some place for QG to fight them. If Ever you know, are craving that 5-dragon potential win condition, that puts himself in a position where they have to fight QG head to head.
Yeah, they're not so far behind on the gold game either, as Loken jumps in for TNT, and that's all she wrote.
That was very, very quick there as well. And you can see there's items coming through here. Loken, you see why he's putting down such a hurting. The Bloodthirster coming into that event.
This returns what you're saying is they're going to hopefully try and get another turret here at Ever. It's very low. They're going to pick it up. Ever want to fight. They can't split push. We already mentioned both their teleport users are super far behind those of QG. They'll take team fights. That's why having 3 dragons, starting to threaten a 4th and a 5th one, might get them the team fights they're looking for, because otherwise they're going to be split to hell.
And speaking of splits, V called his own off to try and defend this one here. Pillar goes down, and they're still getting pushed back. They can't even stop it at this point. It could be the inhibitor under fire as Swift is pushed away. His Nidalee, as big as it is, has not been as useful in the last 15 minutes, or last 10 minutes, I should say. Inhibitor number 1 goes down, and surprise, surprise, it's Ever taking it.
No culling available here for QG. TNT was dead. He couldn't have used it. In fact, it's not even off cooldown as well, so the window was well timed for Ever, and they rotate to top.
Just picking up so many objectives from 1 kill. That's the reality of this patch 523. If you pick up a kill on any sort of wave clear, you get 40 seconds of playtime just 30 minutes in, and they've taken so much already, and they're not done.
Tristana comes online. The rapid fire cannon, static shiv, eye edge, and of course that good old Bloodthirster. There's just so much damage being dealt by Loken right now to these structures. It is unreal. The reaction time that QG need simply isn't there. Another inner turret goes down.
Right? The siege comp we talked about. The Trundle Pillar comes down, and double AD, including a Tristana, are wrecking turrets. QG have to make the big initiate now. Who's it going to be, though? Because another one's going down.
The poke is really hurting, and this siege composition for ESC is just massive, and Swift is forced to use the Sonyas. It's a Culling coming out from Swift, but it's Culling coming out from TNT, but Swift is almost caught there by the exhaust. PCT soaking damage for no reason, no follow-up available, and ESC looks like they can't be stopped.
This is a team that was on the back foot, 3 minutes ago, and the game is over. Double AD and Trundle is disgusting in the pushing game, and they've just pushed everything.
This is going to be it. The Nexus now being contested as QG are trying to hold on as much as they can. Grand Challenge coming down. Ares will still survive through that, though. And look at this. TNT is out towards the edge. Doing B as well. QG holding on. For the moment, they are.
It's all Swift. He's got to stay alive. No, he can't do it.
And the Nexus will fall.
Crazy does it out of nowhere. He was 0 and 5, I believe. Now suddenly 4 and 5. They finish off the game. Execution heavy is what we called the Varus comp here, but the moment they got the pick, the hero was Loken. Remember, just chilling in bot lane farming. Suddenly with 380 items, Rocket jumps in, Forgiven style, picks up a kill, they break the base, they take an inhibitor. One more mistake, the game was over.
Yeah, I want to turn a phrase completely on its head here, because I remember about a year or so ago, Scar was talking about a little team called Coast, about how they are winning until they lose. Ever was the exact opposite this game. Completely held back, pushed behind, all that stuff on Swift, all that damage, all those kills. And then once they took a fight, Ever could roll on forward.
We just think about these things, the changes that came with this patch, the inner turrets getting weaker, things like the Trundle coming into the meta. We foresaw, okay, double AD, specifically the Varus with his poke, and the Tristana, who's a turret wrecker, and the Trundle being a strong absolutely a strong pushing duo, but just the fact that the one pick, the 40-second death timer, during that 40 seconds while the Lucian was dead, they got 2 turrets, they got an inhibitor, they rotated top, so they had position on another inner turret, got another kill, and the game was literally over. Such was the power of things like specifically the terrain from Trundle, but just the double AD, my goodness.
We were talking about flicking a switch earlier on in this weekend, and that was definitely the case. We've also talked about Sleeping Lions, and Loken was definitely one of those, to such a point that we even got our Korean-style casting on. So I hope you guys did enjoy that in those last few moments. But look, we're going to pass over soon towards the experts' desk, but very, very quickly, guys, you've seen now a win from each side. I mean, which one was more convincing? Who really looked like they've adapted better here?
Honestly, QG have impressed me more than ever this series, but man, when you see Ever's plan put together, when you see all those moving parts that on their own seem innocuous, my goodness, when they put them all together at the same time, the result, it's devastating.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about QG though, because I feel like they were the dominant team in game number 1. Obviously they won, but they felt way more on par together, and for about 90% of this game, they also felt completely in control and a much better team on paper just from what they were executing. But this time it was Ever that won, so I mean, maybe they're the ones that are stronger anyways. For now though, we're gonna go ahead and send it back to the experts.
All right, well, game 2. You know, I was so prepared to open this segment up if QG won and be like, so would you say that was an ideal showcasing of Nidalee and her power, et cetera, but they didn't win, so we're just going to forgo that. But let's talk about the benefits. You know, the commentators touched upon it briefly, but the fact that Ever, you know, they just had to wait for that one moment, and they took advantage of that. How did you guys view that game?
I felt like it completely showed up what I was talking about last time on the desk, is why would you team fight Chaogu? Now, at the same time, Ever did manage to do that, but only if after they had gotten their picks and they forced into a numbers disadvantage. But this composition was all about sieging. It's all about taking those structures. And again, that's what I said, you know, Ever, you know how to play the macro game. QG are a very reactive team. They can fall behind. Just continue to abuse them like that and keep drafting this way.
To be fair, I think the biggest issue in this particular game was QG had this massive lead, but they failed to transition that into the mid game. The game slowed down. The game slowed down, and nothing happened for so long. All of a sudden, we see the CS advantage on Varus, and the Rod of Ages is stacked on Ryze. Doesn't matter if he was behind earlier. In the end, he got a triple kill. Then we take a look at the Tristana. Has 1 item advantage on the Lucian. Tristana reaches level 18, and of course they're going to win. QG had the ball in their hand and just completely dropped it.
Do you think that was mostly QG just not taking advantage of the fact that they were getting all these early kills, or was it also just partly a problem maybe with the picks themselves and the compositions on both sides?
I mean, what I think is like Nidalee just camped top lane, right, and got like 4 or 5 kills or whatever. But the biggest problem is even if you kill him and don't take the tower, you don't open up the map. And I think that's like the biggest problem, that even if you snowball a lane so hard, you need to see what you can do with it on the map as an objective. And the kills might be good to like have a gold lead and everything, but if you don't transition that lead with a gold on the jungler into like map pressure, then of course you're gonna lose against like a harder scaling comp like Ryze, Varus, and of course the Tristana. So I think the biggest mistake was QG played well, but they should have pressured the map and played correctly out.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest issue in this game, we didn't see Fiora with this advantage. She was never pressuring a tower. At this point, when she has this advantage, she should pressure in the Ryze matchup. And also the Lucian and the Alistar was also almost non-existent in this game. And they were grouping up mid, and Varus is just clearing the waves, and eventually Tristana is a powerhouse.
All right, so it looks like QG really just let it slip out of their hands. Of course, I think all of us knew that they had that early lead, but that means the series is tied 1-1. So we're back to square one in this best of 5. Who's going to take the lead in Game 3? We'll find out right after this.